Hello, all you Andorks out there. We are here today, me and a bunch of strangers. Well, apart from Maff. Maff is a regular guest on this show. You are hearing the voice of Spider Dan and the Secret Boars, not your usual hosts for the Comics in Motion Andor podcast. But Jack and Mike have found themselves locked up in Narkina 5, which they are trying to get out. And there is only one way out. One way out. One way out. So,
did you want us to join in?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can do. We can do take. Can we do take two?
Way out.
Take two.
All
Ready?
right, take two.
3, 2, 1. One way out.
Wait, I can't swim. I can't swim, guys.
Spoilers. Yeah, we're about as organised as those prisoners. So yeah, this is a bit of a slapdash put together, but we're trying to stay on programme with this podcast. Really so you are stuck with me, but I do have, again, we already have Maff, as I've stated. He is here once again. He is the solid. He is our anchor in this show, in the Comics in Motion series of podcasts about Andor. He's been there since the beginning on almost every single one, and he's back again. So, Maff, how are you still finding the show? We know you've loved it so far, but you've not been on for a couple of episodes. So how has it been since then?
I've really enjoyed it. It's got to be some of the best stuff Disney's done. Taking I've said it many times before, but taking a character that we kind of know what happens with him, but the fact that they're building this universe up and they're filling in so many gaps, I just think it's some of the best writing they've done. Not knowing loads about Star Wars and that, but now you feel as if they are filling in just certain things that we made up in our own mind along that before, but now it kind of just is fleshing it out. And as I say, I think it's some of the best writing that they've done.
I agree. I do agree, but I can feel the dark side of the Force pushing through, trying to be heard. And I've brought along, because it could have been just me and Maff, and I think that would have been great, but I wanted someone I've done Star Wars content with before. I wanted my Obi-Wan to my Qui-Gon Jinn, I guess, to join us. We've talked about background Star Wars characters. We've talked about weird sex scenes, you name it. We've talked about a hell of a lot. But Ben Crampton, the attention seeking geek, famous on YouTube for many a live stream and more, you name it. He is the Jabba to my Yaddle as well. He is I don't know if that's offensive, actually. Maybe is that? Offensive?
I preferred being compared to Obi-Wan Kenobi. I was quite happy with that. When I kind of wish you just but you carried on going, and now I'm Jabba the Hutt.
Sorry,
Wonga.
You know what? I'm not going to edit this, but let's just pretend we've edited it. Okay. So Ben, how have you been finding the show? Because I've not heard any of your opinions about it thus far. My Obi-Wan to my Qui-Gon Jinn, of course.
Lovely. Hello there. Yes, I am loving it. I think Maff is exactly on point there, with this being some of the best kind of written work, at least, that we've sort of seen the House of Mouse give to Star Wars. It's just like I kind of think it's being overused now, but the Breaking Bad of Star Wars, the Better Call Saul of Star Wars, but I do think that's such a good kind of there's so many similarities there in terms of the sort of pacing, how it kind of tends to go for sort of 2 or 3 episodes and then crescendo in that 3rd or 4th episode, and really just a huge focus on character work. It's completely character driven, and quite often Star Wars, and look, I'm Mr. Star Wars. Like, I literally reserve probably 3/4 of my brain to Yaddle alone. I do love the the space fights and the laser swords and the Martians and the droids. But what I love about Star Wars as well is that kind of that character work, and I think sometimes when Star Wars doesn't work, it's because they brush over the character stuff, and here it's the complete opposite. They've lent into it, and to kind of delightful effect, I think. So in short, this is up there for me with some of my favorite content. I mean, at least a couple of the moments from this series are most certainly up there with my favorite moments of Star Wars of all time. Really, really good stuff.
I have to agree. I've said this on a previous podcast. I've been waiting for something like this, something in a different time era with characters we don't know, pretty much don't know, and the world is the oyster, and we're opening it up and we're seeing all these kind of interesting things. They're exploring some great ideas, and I think we've again, this podcast has mentioned it. All of the guests have said how mature the writing is. Nothing is being spoon fed to you. It's like you're either with this story or you're not. It's like Kino Loy giving that speech. You're either with us or you're not with us. Join us. We're not going to talk down to you. You're not going to baby feed you. You're not going to be like, oh, continuity, legends and canon. And no, it's just like, this is a Star Wars thing. Run with it. Go. And again, I think it's honestly, out of all these Disney Plus shows that have come out, Marvel included, I think this is one that is just solid. Every episode, solid writing, solid performances, solid action, and the tension, much like this episode. I think they managed to keep the tension in every episode so tight, so wound up. Like I'm sat here in my own and watching it, and I'm just being like, oh, I'm so tense.
I
was a nervous wreck this week. Like it completely destroyed my nerves.
It's several times as well, isn't it? I mean, we'll get into it, but the speeches that we get in this episode, we get one of them. We get two really building moments. I think that's what, again, it's some of the best writing that they've done. And to be honest, I think even if this weren't Star Wars, this would really work. Even if they just took it away and they want the Star Wars attached to it, people would be watching this. And if they're not, I question why.
And in a way, it's kind of being told with a view to not necessarily have to be Star Wars. I think it feels like the writers and I think the directors even come out and spoke openly about his detachment from trying to make this specifically Star Wars. And I think it's funny, isn't it? You kind of watch it and at times you forget it's Star Wars, and then they'll just throw like a little mouse droid across the screen. You're like, oh yeah, it's Star Wars. But I think it's a palate cleanser because of that, because we've just had your Obi-Wan where it was like stormtroopers in every shot, lightsabers and kind of Martians, and this just feels so fresh in the way that it stripped everything back.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So normally people on podcasts like to start at the beginning. I'm unconventional. I don't do that. So I'm going to go to something I really want to talk about. And
Lock him up.
Who does this? Who does this? I'm like Quentin Tarantino and throwing. Oh, it's all non-linear here.
I hate that guy.
all the timelines, all the different things. But I want to go to one of the more interesting. Well, I mean, it's all interesting. I think it's an excellent episode. But the one that when I rewatched it just now, this is the one that kind of stood out to me a bit more this time round, and it's Mon Mothma potentially pimping out her underage daughter.
Yeah. But she's not going to, is she? Like, I think. You think she's going to?
Nah.
I don't think she will. But
I think she looked quite disgusted when he kind of, you could. I know it left that scene where it was like, but you're thinking about it, which maybe there's part of it that is, but at the same point, I don't think she would. But having said that, it could be clever writing, because if she was to do something, that would explain where her family went. But
and again, you were talking about that speech at the end with Luthen Rail, basically using the weapons of his enemies to defeat them. So maybe, you know, her association with Luthen is making her go, you know, because nobody in this is they're all kind of grey Jedis. There's no good or bad, really. It's just shades of grey. And potentially, you know, maybe she does, or maybe she considers it and does 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 it up to the point where she goes, no, absolutely not. Like right at the last minute, maybe that was what'll happen. What do you think?
I don't know, because she, like Guinevere's O'Reilly's sort of performance in that moment, it was so superbly played. She was kind of shaking, you know. She was almost like visibly kind of, you know, shaking and
disgusted, really, wasn't she, that he would even suggest that.
Yeah, it was like an understated kind of rage that she couldn't express externally because of obviously the implications. So she just kind of had to quietly sit there and you know, when really you could see it in her eyes that she wanted to get up and knock this guy out.
He's an absolute slime ball, isn't he? And that's how she's coming across. You can see that in her physically. She's like, I'd rather pay you, smiling like that.
What if her dickhead husband, maybe he's approached by this this new character, this I forget his name, but you know, this kind of crook. Maybe the husband's approached and is far more kind of open to that offer than her, and that then leads to the family kind of falling apart, maybe.
Possibly, yeah. Or maybe go on, Matt, sorry.
We still don't really know where her husband fits into this. Is he just a bit of a war hero who's, you know, kind of dining out on what he used to be and now in the shadow of Mon Mothma, or is there something more to him? And I mean, maybe I was naive, but I didn't see the spy. I didn't guess that he was going to be a spy on it. Until obviously it gets revealed later on in the show. Now other people was probably going to sit there going, oh, we knew from the start. But, you know, I just thought he was a bit of a pompous prick who was, you know, part of the ISB. Again, we don't know with Mon Mothma's husband where he stands. And that, you know, he just, you know, he's this big, well, he's meant to be this big war hero. And maybe that's just what he is, but something must happen there. I don't think we're going to get it in this season. I think that's going to be way into the second season.
It's a build-up, yeah. No, I think so. I think, you know, seeds are being planted. They clearly know they've got a plan for the 2 seasons. They know what they're doing. They know what they want to do. They've got an end game in mind. So I think it's all to do with that.
There's only 2 episodes left, so there's not enough time to really flesh too much more out with that.
Yeah, true.
Unless it was rushed, and the way they've done so far, I can't see them rushing it.
Do you think they'd end on a cliffhanger because they know they've got season 2?
Oh, 100% that.
Well, yeah.
100%. I'd be gutted if Mon Mothma does something bad in this show, though, if that makes sense. Like, I really feel like she's the moral centerpiece, you know, to the whole thing, because Andor, we know, you know, makes some very on the spot, you know, morally grey decisions, and pretty much as you said there, all of the characters do. But I do feel like Mon Mothma is the one that stands out as someone who is completely trying to be true to and that's why she's struggling so much, because she's almost being forced to do bad things to be able to help the rebellion, and she's not kind of prepared to do that, but she's also not prepared to be, you know, working for the Empire essentially.
And I think that association with Luthen Rail, she was railing against Rail,
How long you had that in your back pocket?
I've been
Couple of
keeping that
days,
one.
week?
Been keeping that one. Just stored it.
Cross that one off now.
I've got all the puns coming. I'm sure there's more puns I can bring up. But like, that's why she has a go at him, because he's like, I want anarchy, I want chaos, I want them angry, I want them, to make stupid decisions. Like even in this episode, it's like, this is great news that people are, buying into this and stuff. And that's exactly what he wants. He's playing because he needs them to amp everything up to convince people to rebel. That's what his end game is in this show, is to get, like when he was talking to Saw Gerrera in the last episode, I think it was, or the episode before, and he's like, yeah, let's team up. He's like, no, the way they work is wrong. I believe in this, you believe in this. We'll never come together. And I think that's Rael's plan, is to get the Alliance together. But the only way you can do that is to make everything the worst it can possibly be, for the Empire to make it even worse, to basically shake everyone out of apathy, to quote Batman Begins, and get them to fucking do something about the state of the galaxy.
Yeah. I mean, you wait till Saw Gerrera starts doing what he wants to do as well, because he's potentially even worse than Luthen in his approach to.
You could say he's a fan of guerrilla warfare. Right, got it. Because
how long's this? How long's we got? Half an hour left.
It's going to be painful. All of
you
these.
Could say we saw that coming.
Oi! That's it. Join the team. Join the team.
I've
gone to the dark side.
You'll get one, Ben. One will come to you. And then you can join the team. You can join our Rebel Alliance with all the puns. Yes. But yeah, I think that was quite an interesting scene with that, because I actually think that, as much as I like, again, the pew pew pew, I am adoring every scene with Mon Mothma. Not she's that's a relative of Godzilla, Mon Mothma. No, so I'm loving all of these kind of like the stuff that people complained about in the prequels is actually some of the more interesting stuff, like the
but it's
politics.
Because it's being wrote
correctly
for adults. Correct. Yeah, like
you look at Game of Thrones before it turned shit. Some of the best stuff there was the politics side that you wouldn't expect to really enjoy. And again, this again, there's all the politics sides that you don't really think about. Is some of the best writing, because they've got to get it right. I mean, the Mon Mothma, there are only little bits here and there, but it's good to kind of see the backstory from her and that. And, like you say, she's been kind of forced into doing things she doesn't really want to do. And that.
I think we might have her do something that she doesn't want to do, she doesn't like doing, she wasn't a fan of doing. She's been
she's nice.
Listen to me. If we think about when we first see Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi, she's this angelic, peaceful peacekeeper of the galaxy. I think for her to get there, she needs to do something really, really, really bad, so that she turns it around. She's like, I'm never going to do anything like that again, but I will do what I think is right, what I need to do. And I think that's where you get that angelic, almost perfect, Mon Mothma that we get in Return of the Jedi, maybe.
I think she's going to leave her family. I think that's probably where she's going to go. She's going to have to do it in quite a big way, so that people think she's disgraced and maybe going to hide into them, leave the rebels, knowing she's done the right thing, even if everyone sees it. Probably, maybe like take that bullet, so that it protects her family, but it means she has to walk away from them. And like you say, she does seem a bit too perfect, which, again, they're the ones that you have to kind of keep an eye on, aren't you? And that, but from what we know of her character, I think she would probably take the sacrifice to get to where she needs to be.
See, I just think something bad is going to happen to her rather than her doing something bad. And I think she's just, her character is just so strong that she decides to completely kind of, you know, throw away her veil of, you know, her disguise and say, no, you know what, I'm a rebel, and I'm you know, and that's when she sort of really embraces that kind of angelic sort of figurehead that we of course saw in the original trilogy. I think out of all of the characters, obviously she's the original trilogy character, you know, but it's out of all of the characters, I think her character is just expanding and growing in terms of that kind of mythology and you know, the information we have about her. Like, this series is serving her character maybe more so than Andor, I think, at this point, because you know, I don't think Andor goes through a huge amount of sort of change necessarily in terms of sort of characteristics and stuff, because he's still pretty shady even in that opening scene in Rogue One. You know, like, he's still doing bad things, so we know he's not going to come too far in the 2 seasons. But Mon Mothma, I think it's just so interesting to see her just cling on to this ideal of the Republic, you know, as it's already crumbled, and she's still desperately trying to sort of cling on to that, you know, what she thought was good. And well, unfortunately, mate, it weren't good.
No,
I think Andor's just the person who's going to take us from each part of these stories. He's
the thread.
He's a connecting thread, you know, just to kind of, because we do have so many different little stories going along, and he's kind of the center of it all. And they're just using him to kind of get from one place. So, you know, we're meeting so many new people that we've actually seen in Rogue One, and that it's just, but they're using him just to kind of step from one place to another.
I think as well that he's like, again, we're kind of seeing that he is the one almost responsible for the rebellion, but he that people don't know, like with you know, the heist, with the prison break, because the prison break, again, it's not his name that he's gone in with. It's an assumed name. It's a, you know, it's a it's a disguise. So he's not going to get the blame, but Kino Loy is, because he was the voice. He was the man. He, spoilers, was left behind. He's the one who's going to get all the stuff. But all the while, Andor is filtering through this story, this rise of the rebellion, and nobody really knows the part he played in it. It's almost like an unknown soldier type thing, which I think is really interesting as well. Like, people, like, we know Andor from Rogue One, but we don't really know Andor. We don't know his journey, and getting from A to B, you know, it's not where he ends up, even though that is amazing and it's a great film. And but I'm enjoying the journey itself, and what it has to say about the Star Wars universe, and how bleak and disturbing and arguably how real this feels. Because I think, like Ben was saying, like, the prequels, you know, it didn't really, like, I like the politics and stuff, and some of the actors are fine and the fights are good, but this feels like this could be, like you said, it could be set today, it could be set wherever, and it would still work. And that I appreciate. I'm loving Dedra Miro's rise to power as well. I think she's
brilliant.
Just so good. Like that previous episode where it's pretty much just focused on her, I thought was amazing. I was blown away by her. Like, each episode, I think everybody's getting better as well. It's just picking up steam. It's brilliant. But yeah, I do wish I'd kind of seen a bit more of her in this episode, but again, we had quite a lot of her in the previous one or the one before. I can't remember. They're all bleeding into each other a little bit, these episodes, but that's a good thing.
With Dedra, it's just that what's the word? That aura she has about her. I mean, her face is quite stone most of the time, and she just a little look, a little snarl, a little something. And it's scary sometimes seeing her. I mean, she really is, quite terrifying.
The cold
She's,
face of fascism.
Ambition personified, isn't she?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's funny you say about like fascism and about enjoying the road to where we kind of eventually get, and obviously, the more iconic stuff in the original trilogy and stuff. But like for me, it's potentially focusing this whole series and this time period on the most interesting time period in Star Wars, because it's the one that probably reflects that kind of Nazi, kind of rise to power more so than anywhere. You essentially kind of had a regime, a party that people got behind, because they believed in what they were saying. It was essentially sort of painting themselves as the savior, following, bad times, and people got behind it. And then obviously once in power, it twisted, and then obviously everything happened that happened. And I think it's just been so interesting to kind of see the parallels of that. And I know we haven't gone back to it yet in full detail, but just those shots of like him going up against the clone troopers, clearly towards the just after kind of Order 66 and stuff. Like, I'm so interested to kind of see those scenes and just go back to that turn of power. And it's so good. This is so bloody good, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and I think as well, we're still kind of seeing the rise of the Empire at the same time, aren't we? Because they're not fully in control.
Nope.
I feel like they've got. If we talk about it in like UK politics, it's like they have the most seats, kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're not fully in control. It's not them. It's because obviously Mon Mothma is constantly kind of being an irritation, as she says, to them. But yeah, they've not gone whole hog just yet, but it's gearing up. The more this in a way, the rebellion is actually making the Empire worse, which is again what Lutheran Rail wants, because that's the only way that they're going to get the rebellion to be the rebellion it's supposed to be. The Empire has to be at its zenith for the rebellion to be at its zenith as well, which is really fascinating. So let's talk about the bit that everyone wants to talk about: Prison Break. Ben, what do you think of the Prison Break? We've had quite a few episodes. So this is the 4th episode in this arc. So they're breaking the three arc structure. Did that work for you? I know on the previous podcast that Brett said that he was like, "Oh no, we've forgotten the 3 arc structure." Was it a problem for you? Or?
To be honest, I didn't even realize. I still thought it was the 3 structure, but yeah, no, you're right, and I think that's testament to how I've enjoyed the build-up of tension, and everything that we got in this episode. The excitement, the action, the speeches, the heartbreak. None of that, all of that, would have felt numb and pointless, or wouldn't have had any weight to it if it wasn't for spending the time to build up that tension, to kind of have the kind of the drama within the characters where there's pushback and eventually that moment where Chemo sort of says, what was it, 12 guards or whatever, none of that would have been as satisfying if it wasn't for all the episodes that came before, and this for me just felt like the absolute perfect climax. And the kind of the coolest thing about it is that we got that heartbreaking moment, where you thought they'd done it, you thought everything had been done, and it was just I can't swim. And I feel emotional even reenacting it, because it was just like I honestly, it was like, what's that Simpsons thing where it's like, oh, you can pinpoint the moment his heart breaks. Like, you could have filmed me and done that, because it really was a gut-wrenching moment, and it was, you couldn't even sit on that moment because Andor was then obviously pushed off in the scurry, and I just found that just so poetically depressing, like, and I think ultimately, a lot of this, like even the original heist, and losing certain rebels in that, it was just it's almost like we're getting to know the various martyrs that have had to play their part for us to kind of get the rebellion, to beat the bad guys essentially. And it's just providing so much texture there. But I honestly, Andy Serkis should be nominated for an Emmy as far as I'm concerned for this performance, because and I know that like a title character Andor, Diego Luna is doing a great job, but I think Andor's character, his characterisms aren't as dynamic as some of the other characters that we're witnessing. And I think Chemo, just to go from that kind of the form and the such an unrelatable kind of character that you could quite easily dislike, to take us from that to someone that we slowly but surely empathize with more and more, to the point where you're fully rooting for the guy, and he's almost like a favorite, and then to take that away from us, it's just brilliant writing. It's the everything, the music. I've absolutely loved the design of Nakina 5, and how kind of sterile it's all felt, and I love the uniforms. I loved how cool
I can imagine
looks.
it as a map on like Star Wars Battlefront.
Oh man, but like how cool it looked with the prisoners in their uniform but holding those guns, like just the kind of juxtaposition of that. And it's
almost like a little ant farm, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you see them all kind of coming to the middle, in the center, and escaping.
I said earlier how there's a couple of scenes that have gone into my kind of top 5, top 10, whatever, best Star Wars moments of all time, and this prison scene is one of those, because it was just perfect storytelling for me. It was sublime. Yep. Maff,
what did you think of the prison break?
I don't know if I can say much more than what Ben just said, to be honest. I mean, although it was heartbreaking, I think what again was good is seeing Kino get to that point of, wow, I can't swim. And that moment, normally, previous Star Wars, it would have been, don't worry, I've got you. Let's go together. Yeah. And it wasn't that. And that's, it leaves you that point of, shit, this is real. We've just lost another major character who we thought, could have gone a bit further here, but it was quite, like you say, it does get you, because you kind of think he shouldn't die, but he does. Oh, well, he possibly.
We don't know.
We don't know. But he gets left behind. He doesn't find his one way out. But it's again, so many times in the show, it's certain looks on characters' faces tells that scene, and that look of, shit, we've done all this and I can't go. And Cassian's kind of like, what did you say? And then next thing you know, he's gone, and there's nothing he can do about it neither. But his speech again, it started off, and you could see him bumbling along, and Andor's like, come on, is that the best you've got? And it builds and it builds and it builds to something where you can, you're behind him. You wanting to get in there with a blast of yourself, and just charge in there with him to get him out.
Felt Shakespearean, that speech, didn't it? In the way that it
shows his acting. It really, again, the casting is brilliant, because they've. I mean, when he popped up in the prison when we first saw him, we were like, whoa, he's in here, and he's. and they've got these big characters to play such major parts.
You could say, Maff, that they snoked him in.
Well, maybe
Could
that's
say
what
that, but I
happens.
don't want you to say that ever
Okay.
again.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's turned into a bit of a circus. This is. I mean, maybe that's what happens to him. Maybe he's left behind. He turns evil and becomes into to be Snoke. Be a major change.
Yeah. The Emperor goes, you know what? I like the cut of your jib. I'm going to deform you and clone you, and you're going to be my little puppet for a few years.
Nice.
Great writing there. Carry on, Matt. I'm sorry to have interrupted.
I don't know. We got derailed a bit there, but I mean,
derailed, loose and derailed.
I mean, I must admit, I did wonder what Cassian was doing all that time with the little bar. Although I do question, he was filing that bar, the water pipe, and then he just went in there with one of the tools and just broke it. And I just thought, you've wasted a lot of time there, really. But I mean, again, there's a look on Kino's face of when the floor gets shorted, and he's still stood there. He's telling everyone to get onto the table, and he's still stood there, and it goes off, and he's not electrocuted. And then again, it's that this is our moment, and that and it's like attack, and everyone just goes, and you just. It's the feels in this episode, I think we said before we started recording that it's one of those episodes where you think not what's really happened until you kind of go back and pick at certain things and realize they've said an awful lot in I think it was about 40 something minutes this week. Again, they've said so much in such a little time that you just don't realize until you sit here and you start picking it out.
Absolutely. I had a lot of fun. It reminded me a little bit. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a Stallone movie called Lock Up. And basically he's a prisoner who Donald Sutherland is like the warden of this new prison he's being transferred to, because he's only got like a few weeks left or a month or so left. And he's somebody, the warden is a prison that Stallone escaped. So he's trying to like piss him off so much so that he will escape. So he's like saying like, oh, he's like beating him up. He's like, making him do all the chores and everything. And then he pretends that a guy's going to go rape his wife, and that's what makes him escape. Because during that film, he just wants to serve out his time. He doesn't want to shake the system. He's like, I'm just going to do my time, well behaved, and I'll get out. And all this other stuff happens. Kills this guy, gets killed as well. Anyway, go watch Lock Up. It's pretty good. But it reminded me of Andy Serkis's thing in this, because he was like, I follow the rules, I do the system. He's turned this kind of competition into a game for himself to keep himself entertained, to keep him, moving towards it. Like when he goes back to his cell after they learn from last episode what happened to level 2, he looks like he's talking to Andor, and Andor's like, he's like, you're going to do it. This is our chance, And he's like, no, stay on program. And he goes back, and the first thing he does is he looks at the amount of days he has left. That's the first thing he does when he goes into his cell, because that is what counts for him. Quite literally and figuratively, that thing counts. And he looks at that and he goes, everything I've done, every day I've worked so hard for, everything I've been building towards is all lies. It's fake. It's bullshit. And that's why he says, no one's getting out. We're going to die here. We'll figure it out in the morning, but we're going to do what we're going to do. I'm going to assume I'm already dead. And I love his arc has been great, because we see him on one end of like, oh, this is order, this is organization, this is what I'm supposed to do, follow the rules, don't do this, don't do that. And Andor all the way through it is kind of convincing him, so much so that we get up to that point and he gives that speech, and it's amazing. It's such a great speech. And I love that it's not like, oh, just every man for himself. He's like, help somebody up, because obviously the poor old guy's had a stroke in the last one, and he's like, and he wanted to help him, and he was like, let's just get him through the last few days, give him a shot or something. And he's like, no, help each other up. I did laugh, though, because the second after he said that, 2 guys fall over and nobody fucking helps them.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
They're like, oh shit.
And Andor literally gets pushed off the edge, like, you know, yeah.
Before he even knows what's going on. But
clearly that message didn't get across to everyone.
But I love that Andor's there, like geeing him on. He's like, come on, is that the best you've got? You're a leader. This is what you do. This is your thing. And it just turns into this wonderful, wonderful speech. And I love, like, right at the end, he just starts quoting Andor, like, word for word, what Andor had said to him earlier. It was like,
yeah,
I don't know about you, but I'm going to fight until I die. And it's great. I did kind of wish we had a bit more from the other prisoners, because I felt in the last episode like I'd almost missed something, because Andor was like, because he was in his funk, wasn't he? He was like, oh shit, I'm here. This is I'm in prison now. I'm sad. And then the episode after that, he was like, all right, guys, this job's okay, isn't it? Yeah, we're doing all right. We're getting on. I did feel like there was a bit of a disconnect for me there. And I did think they're all just like, he's the ginger one, he's the Asian guy, he's the black guy. Like there was nothing else other than they were kind of prisoners. I wish there was a bit more something to their characters, because I think I would have cared a bit more, like when they died or got shot or something.
Oh, you did care, right? Like when they were, you know,
of course,
shot.
yeah. I think
that's quite an achievement alone,
I guess.
considering that, you know, the lack of lines, and as you say, like we didn't know anything about them. We still, even after just 3 episodes, felt like I was, like, oh no, the ginger dude. Like,
oh no, he was my favorite. That's gonna be the next figure in the Star Wars Black series.
But the rumor is we are getting a Melshi spin-off.
ginger dude. I'm seeing the packaging, just ginger dude.
It's a fair point, that, because it's like Melshi's in Rogue One, so I thought there would have been a bit more. I mean, I think we're going to get that in probably the next 2 episodes, but you'd have thought there'd have been because it's just, again, it's great. Every time I've been on here, we've just jumped all over the place for the order of where we are, but it's like you see Melshi and Andor running off at the end into the sunset. But you'd have thought there'd have been a little bit more between them two, building up to this.
Yeah, and that's what I thought with that first episode, where they're like, "Oh yeah, it's whisper, whisper, whisper," and then there's this other guy in the previous episodes where he's like, you know, him and Andor have got, you know, a bit almost. It's like we missed a couple of scenes or something, because he's got this friendship with this other guy now, who is the one who starts climbing up the lift in this episode, but we didn't know. And he was like, "Well, I've already got a plan," and he's telling Andy Serkis, and I was like, "Well, where was this?" Again, very minor nitpick from me, very minor nitpick, but it's just something. But yeah, I thought the whole sequence was great, the whole breaking out. And I think this is this is probably the most tragic thing I've seen in Star Wars content for me that I've seen. I think it's the one that I was like, this is like Ben was saying, it's like Shakespearean tragedy. You know, he G's everyone up, he convinces them, he's like, help, this is our fight, one way out. And he gets there, he's like, I can't join you. And it's that martyrdom.
The way he delivered that line was just
can't swim.
Yeah,
can't swim.
It's again his face. It's just that look of there's nothing I can do.
I love that he's forgotten, because he's not seen the outside world for so long. He's forgotten what is actually outside.
I think he's just got built up so much in the moment of we're doing this, we're getting out, not realizing what's out there. And that, I mean, you know, you see, this is a question that's going to be there: is, you know, did he ever jump or not, or did he just stay behind? I mean, there's another good scene of the guards when they're all cowering.
Oh yeah,
hiding behind, you know, and you can see them all there, kind of shaking, and it's like, please don't come in, please, you know. And it's almost
like Attica or something, isn't it? Like it's just an absolute like prison riot, and you know the. You know, I don't want to say the lunatics have taken over the asylum, but it's, you know,
oppressors have become the oppressees.
Ooh, see, this is why I got you on, Ben.
I know.
You can't deliver the puns like I can, but you can deliver other stuff. This is why we all make such a good team.
I've got a bit of a personal kind of story that was what I thought of with Andy Serkis's chemo performance. So when I went traveling in Australia, I had the worst 4 days of my life fruit picking up in North Australia in the outback of Cairns, and we were fruit picking lime trees, and it was horrendous. Like, the conditions were awful. Our treatment was just borderline imperial, from the farmer, the guy that ran the farm or whatever, just spoke to us awfully, and breaks were minimal. It was just awful. But when we were working, there was a foreman who worked with us, and this guy was like an old man, and he was older than the actual farmer, and he'd basically been the farmer's kind of right hand man for however long, but the farmer didn't speak to him with a level of respect or kinship or whatever. Like, he still spoke to him almost like a staff, but he was kind of like our line manager, when we were actually doing the work, on the farm. And it was weird. It was like I resented this man because he was part of the problem. He was shouting at us, and but then there were moments of there were little glimmers of oh no, he's actually human. He's actually, he's got a kind of tender side and stuff. And that story was what it immediately kind of came to my mind when, the chemo character started to unravel and stuff. And I just think it's just a story we've not seen told, I don't think, in Star Wars yet. And I just think they've done it superbly. Also, I've sent about 3 screenshots to my friend just of the backs of Rebels in various shots of Return of the Jedi and Empire and that, and then I've just done an arrow and just done this is chemo. Just whoever's got an old back of their head, I've just gone, this is chemo. Yeah, he lives.
He lives.
He can be any old Jedi in one of.
Well, they do that all the time, didn't
Jedi,
they?
Rebels,
didn't they do that with one of the clone troopers?
Rex.
Yeah, he's in Return of the Jedi, isn't he? Or apparently,
clutching.
Yeah, stretching, very very big stretch. So let's talk about the last bit of the episode, the last section. So it is Luthen Rail, and we discover that. Was the guy with the tash? Was he the guy who was right at the first episode? Was he the one who was cocking up and he's like, right, I want all my reports on my desk? Was that the same guy?
No. I think he's the same rank as Deirdre. I think he's called Lonnie.
He looks like a Lonnie. He looks like a Lonnie.
He was kind of one of the guys that were whispering in Major Potter's ear. So he was kind of the right-hand man there. He's been in a lot of the episodes, but he's just been a background character and just piped up every now and again. And then
best spies are, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know who he is, Dan, as well? One of your favourite films, Kick-Ass 2. He's the human spider, I think, or something.
Oh,
in that,
my God, really?
Yeah, Robert Evans, what a guy.
Me and Ben are planning to do a Secret Defenders on my channel of Kick-Ass 2. Yeah. And you've got a hard job ahead of you for doing that, mate, because that's a shocking film. Anyway, Maff, let's go.
Sorry.
Stop Ben from talking, because that's not who we're here to listen to. We're here to listen to Maff. You've told your Bart Simpson great picking story, and your abuse at the hands of Australian or Frenchmen, whoever it was. But we've got to go back to Maff. Maff was talking about this guy and this speech. So shut your dirty mouth.
I mean, they did mention earlier on in the episode that I think, was it something had been marked and then the rail had been broken and it was fresh. So the guy wants to meet, and Luthen's like, oh, he hasn't met me in a year, but, why is he doing this? And you think at that point, you don't know it's a spy, don't you? I first thought, is this someone who Luthen's working for? Is there someone above Luthen? But we find out no, he's just a pawn. And he goes down and meets Luthen. Luthen's, you see, you mentioned earlier in the episode about everything being grey. Luthen's black. He's very much on the dark side, and that the Empire would love him, to be honest. And that because
that's what he says in his speech, doesn't he? I've become the Empire.
Yeah, which I think we, in a previous episode, we said about the antique dealer is the persona, and Luthen is a real person. And I'm now questioning: is Luthen now was the persona and has now taken over because of all this stuff that he's done? He's sacrificing, given so much to the cause that he believes in, and this is the best. One of the best things I think about it is that everyone thinks the rebels are the good guys. It's all built on quite nasty things, quite bad things. The speech that he gives when he's asked, what have you given? And again, it's another one of those speeches that just builds and builds, and you realise that he's given everything to this. And then you feel really bad for Lonnie, the fact that he's just not cared about, really. And he tells him, you'll go back and you'll do as you're told, and you'll do what I want you to do, because that's what you'll do. And that, and it again,
it's quite creepy as well when he's like, congratulations, you've had a daughter.
Yeah.
Great news. And he's like, I hate that these things about me, or that my life is a book to you, or whatever he says. I thought that was like super like intimidating, and I love that shot when he comes out and it's just like, and it's the wind blowing, the cape's going, or the cope's going, and you just see that was a very kind of classically Star Wars composed
a Vader moment.
Yeah, exactly. I could picture him having lighting up a lightsaber or something. Very Empire Strikes Back, with all the kind of corridors and in the kind of carbonite chamber, whatever they call it.
But Coruscant's great as well because it completely represents the difference of like class, from what goes on the higher you get in Coruscant, and yeah, I love that this was like in the depths of it all. Do you think he's a Jedi? Because I have read some theories on that. In some of the things that he's speaking about, in his speech, and he references how 15 years ago, and apparently if you work it out in terms of when this is set, 15 years ago was Order 66 and what went down there apparently. So there are theories floating about that he's a Jedi of past.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how you'd feel about that.
Do you think maybe he's one of these who's Force sensitive, who never managed to learn the Force and kind of,
because
blames
they do like Jedi mind tricks, don't they? So they do manipulate people. That's one of their abilities, is to manipulate, change people's ideas, convince them to do things, and he's very good at that.
Yeah. I mean, I know I want to go back to this, but the nitpick I have with the show, which is kind of going to go against what I've said earlier on in previous things, is Andor at times. Although he's the guy that gets us from point A to point B, I sometimes feel that they're trying to build where he's going to be, but sometimes I think they've rushed it. It's like, when he breaks out of prison, he's straight away shooting people, whereas we've seen previously he's hesitated. Now, it just seemed a bit too easy for him, and I feel that's where I kind of losing my feel of where he is at the moment, and that. But I think, Luthen, he's that thing that we're going to need to kind of get the rebels on, on side. But he says about I think Lonnie says to him, you need to warn. There's 50 people that are going to go into somewhere and that to attack, and it says you need to warn them because they're going into a trap. It's for the pilot.
Yeah, they got the pilot and the ship, and they staged it as an accident.
And it's like, it's just 50 people. And, that's the point when you realise in Lupin, he means business, and he doesn't care what he has to do to get where he needs to be. And I think he's like Dedra's ice features at times. Lupin has that as well, and it's the point when I'm now starting to question him, and that I wonder if there's, although he wants the rebels to be a thing, I wonder if there's something else there as well with him.
Another agenda.
Yeah. And that it just seemed quite dark to get to what he wants them to do.
The only nitpick I have about this section of the episode, again, very minor, really, really minor. I've loved every single one of these episodes. Like I said, 99% is amazing. The one nitpick I have is I'm gonna, in acting terms, I'm gonna tell you what this scene says to me. Okay, Luthen Rail, what is your motivation? What is my motivation? What is my motivation? I will tell you my motivation and backstory, and you will cry. I felt it was a bit like, oh, we don't know anything about Luthen Rail. Oh, here is who he is. And I kind of, again, it was a good speech. I think Stellan Skarsgård is a spectacular actor, and I think he gave it his absolute all. But it did feel like a bit like a little ham-fisted to me. It's like, I'm going to tell you who exactly I am to you, rebel spy, because he's very careful about not telling anybody anything in this show. Like, even when he says, oh, you were behind the heist, and he goes, no, we were just invited, we didn't go there. And he knows full well he knows full well that he planned and sorted that out. But everyone he speaks to, he never tells them entirely the truth. And when he did that to this guy, I felt it was a bit disingenuous. Like, if he told Andor, I felt that would have been made more sense to me for the character. But this random guy who's not spoken to in a year, he's like, I'm going to tell you everything about me and how I work and what I believe in and what I've been doing all these years and what I'm building towards, just like, oversharing, basically. I don't feel like this is the person he would overshare to.
It's like that moment when the bad guy tells the hero his plan.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. And that's, the speech was good and it was emotional.
Yeah.
But it felt as if it shouldn't have been there. I think he overshared.
Yeah.
Or he's told him what. Again, it could be quite clever.
Yeah, it could be. This could. Yeah, exactly. That could be all be a lie, but it didn't feel like it was performed like it wasn't. But I don't know. Like you said, maybe there's an agenda. Maybe he's playing a character within a character within a character.
Well, he snapped a bit, didn't he? Like I felt like he, from what the spy was saying, it wound him up, and it wound him up to the point where he bit and said, "No, actually, I'll tell you why I'm doing this, and I'll tell you where I'm at." And he didn't give him any information away in terms of like plans or anything like that. No. All he was doing was like expressing what, why he's such a prick, about everything. I think that's how I interpret it. But yeah, like
Ben, I'm still waiting from that speech from you, to be honest.
It's coming. It's coming.
One day you're gonna be like, you want to know, Dan, why I'm such a prick? I'm gonna tell you why I'm such a prick.
So rude. I come on here as a guest.
And rude. You weren't invited. No, you were. You're not wanted. You were invited, but you're not wanted.
I've hacked this call.
No. Don't worry. You're not falling out. Not falling out with me, Ben.
To bring me this information.
You're not falling out with me, Ben. Don't worry. You can fall out with other people. That's.
Thanks.
Right. So Ben, what else did you think about this last bit, and then we'll come to an end.
Yeah, I just I appreciate what you're saying, but like for me, I think we've seen Luthen in this kind of disguise, with this different persona for quite a long time now, like what, 4 episodes or so, maybe even more. So it was nice to kind of almost be reunited with that Luthen that we saw in like episode 2 and 3 and stuff, and yeah, just to get an insight as to his kind of justification for his actions. I'm hoping that in season 2, I don't think it will come in season 1, but I'm hoping season 2 does similar stuff for Saw Gerrera, who, if anything, is even more extreme. So what's your justification for that, Saw? So yeah, it's just adds to
It's because
how
he's got
compelling it all is.
Yeah, it's because he's got a sore throat. It's just irritating him. It's just like, I'm Saw Gerrera, and I'm very mad. I'm gonna blow up people.
He has got the worst Star Wars costume I think I've seen on a character in this series. if you've seen the like promotional images, it's horrible. He looks like he's wearing, those like air vent things on his like arms and legs. Like, yeah, it's not a strong look.
It's probably because he sweats so much. I imagine
we're gonna see the accident, aren't we? That obviously makes him worse to wear.
When we've seen he looks pretty much, I mean, he's bashed up, but he's pretty much intact, isn't he? When we saw him in the previous episode.
Yeah, like he's got legs.
Just
that.
We noticed that. He's got his legs still.
Yeah. And he ain't got his Darth Vader gear yet, so...
Yeah.
It's like the Poundland Darth Vader, isn't he, really?
He is, yeah.
And we've seen he likes to torture as well. He's not opposed to using Empire-like tactics to get the job done. So I'll be interested to see. It was nice to see him, and I'm glad again. Like we on your show, Ben, when we've talked about Obi-Wan and we've talked about Book of Boba Fett, and we've talked about our criticisms of those shows with like we're going to put this character in for no particular reason, and this character and this cameo and this moment, and we're going to call back to this. All the kind of fan service. There is fan service within this, but I think Angry Andy put it quite well. It's like it's done in the right way. It's not like. It's not like being announced, like or spoilt, or like. I kind of assumed that we'd have some familiar characters in this, but I like that they're not going, guess who's in the next episode? Like, not with She-Hulk, like, the day before the Megan Thee Stallion episode came out. They were like, guess who's going to be on this week's episode? Why wouldn't you just surprise us?
But look at like Melshi, like no one asked for more Melshi. No one asked for that. But now that we've got more Melshi, I'm actually really enjoying that we see Andor having relationships with some of the rebels that we saw in Rogue One and stuff. So when you go back and watch Rogue One now, it kind of really gives it an extra layer. And I think if you're going to include cameos and walk-on parts and stuff like that, it needs to serve a purpose. It needs to give that character or the story an extra layer. And sometimes it doesn't do that. It just gives you that cheap pop, as they call it in wrestling. Whereas like here, everything just sort of feels well thought out. And I know I said about Luthen being a Jedi, but in a way, I kind of don't want that to happen because it falls back into that trope,
I was going to say I kind of don't want to see Jedis in this because I think it will take me out of the real. I say realism, but obviously it's a galaxy far away and a long time ago. But
we said
there's an air of that.
This could quite easily fit so many different stories. It doesn't have to be in Star Wars. It could be House of Dragons, Breaking Bad. It's so well done. The fact that it could fit into so many different genres. The fact that it's got Star Wars behind it probably does elevate it a lot more. And that, but people might come to this. I know we've got someone in Discord who's not watched them. I think they started watching them now. But they probably looked and thought, Star Wars, another one of them things. But I think once you start watching it, I think people will enjoy it for what it actually is and kind of forget it is Star Wars. And that just enjoy what's actually on the screen.
And on that note, Maff, I think we've come to an end. That was a lovely way to end the episode. So, Maff, are you on the social medias yet? Are you going to join us?
I'm on Twitter, but I don't know if anyone should actually mention that because it's a bit of a shit show at the moment.
Okay.
Have you paid your fee yet? Come on.
Get a blue tick. That's all that matters. Once you have your blue tick. But yes,
he can stick his blue tick up. Anyway. So no, I just kind of active on Discord, annoying you guys. But
the opinions of Maff are not shared with all the other guests or hosts on this podcast. No, I'm with you on that one, Maff. So, but
no, I don't have any podcast or YouTube channel.
Maff, you got this podcast.
Yeah.
You're all over this shit. You're on like almost every episode. You're on more episodes than I think you're on more episodes technically than JAC and Mike now. So maybe you should have been the host this week.
Well, maybe that should. Maybe I'm just trying to angle them out for season 2.
Just force them out.
Yeah,
this is it. You're the Dedra Nero of this podcast. You're trying to push everyone away. You're just slyly kind of.
I allow them to guest on now and again.
We'll tell them that. Yeah, they're just the guests that come on. Really, that it's your show, I think. And I've been a lovely guest as well, I think. Ben, thank you again for doing this. Thank you both for coming on and doing this so last minute. I know it's not even been 24 hours, I think, since I messaged you both and since I kind of got messaged to do this. So it's kind of like, but thank you. It's been a delight. It's been great. It's been great talking Star Wars content. Ben, where can we find you on the social medias apart from Attention Seeking Geek on YouTube?
Yeah, and I'm also at Attention Seeking Geek on Instagram as well. So you can find me on both of those platforms. And it's your standard geeky content, but with a humorous twist often, because fuck me, people take themselves too seriously in this world. So I'm here to juxtapose that in the community. So, but yeah, no, this has been an honor to be part of. I've been dying to talk about this.
You popped your Comics in Motion cherry. That's what's happened.
Yes, and
hopefully you'll be back.
I'll need a cream.
Initially, I said to Mike, because Mike again does the Star Wars podcast on Comics in Motion, and I'd promised him to do Obi-Wan together, that I'd be on it, and then I promised you, and I forgot that I promised Mike, and I felt awful. And he was like, "You promised me first." And I was like, sorry, Mike. Ben asked me, and now I can't go back. And he was like, "You should honor the first promise." He doesn't. It doesn't sound like that, and he didn't cry. But he's made of sterner stuff.
The best thing is when he asks you to come on next time, Dan, and he then invites Ben instead.
It's inevitable, Dan.
That, you know what? That
I've wiggled my way in now.
That would be a great kind of bait and switch. It'd just be like, "Yeah, Dan, you're coming on. Yeah, oh great, okay, yeah. Where are you? What's the link? Where's the Zoom link?"
I'll send you it, Dan. I'll send you the link.
And then it's a double bait and switch, because then I can ambush him on the same Zoom, on the same podcast. He'll be like, "Hi, you bastard!" Because you can hide people, can't you? In like Zooms, you can like put them in a room, and you'd be like, "I'm actually here, and I've been listening the whole time." We can do something like that. But yeah, check out Ben's YouTube channel. I'm on there a lot. We covered things. We've done a lot of Star Wars content. So we did most of Obi-Wan, I think. We did a good few episodes.
Yeah.
We did Book of Boba Fett. I think, a couple of those, maybe one of those. We definitely did the background characters, the Star Wars background characters.
We did. Yes.
That was a fun one. I came very prepared. Nobody else did. Probably too
standard.
Prepared.
Yeah,
probably
standard.
too prepared. I'm like, I've got it. I memorized it as well, like an actor would, like a proper actor. Got all my stuff. It's all rehearsed. None of this was rehearsed today. This is live and uncut.
I'm sure they can tell that, Dan, by listening.
Yeah, they're like, "What is he fucking doing? This pretender to the throne. What's he doing to Maff's show? He's ruining Maff's show. What is he doing?" But yeah, no.
Mike's going to kill me now. I'm never going to get invited back on again.
No, I've ruined it for everybody. I've ruined the whole show. I've ruined Comics in Motion. It's just happened. I'm sorry, guys. It's just like, did you get any downloads? No. If anything, we got negative downloads. Damn. Thanks for ruining everything and turning this into a giant joke. No, but yeah, go and check out Ben's stuff. Ben's been on my podcast as well. We've done weird sex scenes, which was it's an interesting one of my favorites. We talked
podcast.
Sorry,
what about the podcast?
I see what you did there. Very good. I'm a bit slow on the uptake there.
That's beyond weird, trust me.
It's weirder than anything we talk about on that podcast, definitely. So we did Small Soldiers. We did one of the first ones you did was the Evil Santas, didn't we? The Killer Santas. We did.
Yes,
Killer Santas. That we had to record twice because my machine broke.
Yeah, I wanted to kill myself. It was
But you and your lovely wife invited me back, and you were so nice to have me back. You didn't have to do that. I really did appreciate it. I've never been more gutted in my life about something. I've just because it was so good, and I was like, right now we have to do the second show.
We both have an acting background, luckily, so we can make things sound as fresh as daisies. Even though we've said it all before. Yeah,
perfect pronunciation, nice and loud. Yes. So if you haven't heard of me before, if you've been listening to if you've been listening to Maff's show, I have been on it. Even when Maff wasn't on it, I was on it. But he's the mastermind. He's the puppeteer. He's the Palpatine of this podcast.
Do it.
And that's how they convinced me to host this podcast. Was they just went, do it. You find me on spiderdownthesecretballs.com. It's a podcast. It's a fun hub of activity. If you're looking for Ben's podcasts that do feature me, so they're more important, you can go on my collaborations on my website. It's in spite that I put on a website. Right, I'm very tired. It's been a long day. So spiderdownandthesecretballs.com. Just Google Spider Down and the Secret Balls, BORES. You'll find all that stuff. I've done my own Star Wars content. I've looked at the Ewok movies. I've looked at Star Wars Holiday Special, the trilogy of terrible, as I like to call it. That's both with Angry Andy, and he has opinions on that Star Wars content as well. So lots of good Star Wars content out for you to partake in. Yes, I have been here. But Maff and Ben have ascended to a new level. We finally found our one way out. One way out.
One way out. One way on program. Shut up. On program.
Stay on program.
And Ben,
I'm going to shock you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Comics in Motion. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jack. Thank you.
Sorry, Jack. Sorry, Mike.
Thank you, everybody who does Comic in Motion, the Podfathers, Chris and Dave, and anybody else, Tony, all the good people that help out and make this community as great as it can be. Follow Comics in Motion, like, share, subscribe, listen, all the good stuff, because they're brilliant and they're kind enough to put up with me and my silliness. Right, so I will see you later, guys, and see you later, Andorks. We are cutting out, so we're leaving. We're going to escape, and we're going to go for a swim because we can. Good night.